Mhm.
All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start recording. All right. So hello again, everybody. My name is Fabian Pavon. I am one of the co-lead community organizers for the Empower program here in the city of Pomona. And with the Empower program, we're in collaboration with the Liberty Hill Foundation and the Latino and Latina Roundtable. We have made it our mission to overcome barriers to sustainable energy, which is commonly experienced in low income and working class communities of color. So Pomona has one of the highest pollution rates in California, and it is important that we do what we can to support our community. And so a lot of you can do this by signing up for the Empower program, and you can find our intake form at www.latinolatinaroundtable.org/empower. And so what Empower does is, we review your household's needs to help you maximize savings on the programs that are a right fit for you. So we promote low cost or no cost energy efficient and sustainable programs like solar panel installations, home improvements, and appliance rebates that meet your basic energy needs and help you save on your utility bills. In addition to determining the possible use of clean vehicles in your area, we help assess to see if you are eligible for trading in your old gas guzzler for an electric vehicle. And so, some people are eligible for up to $14,000 a new clean energy efficient vehicle or an electric vehicle. And so if you have a car that you no longer use, or if it has smog check problems, there are some programs that can help you, paying for your upgrades for your car to be able to pass a smog test, or trade in your car for an electric vehicle. So uh, again, just to summarize a little bit about what we do with the Empower program, we definitely focus on, helping low-income communities of color, and so through some of our programs, we do help, folks save money on their utilities, or sometimes folks are eligible for grants to help them catch up on their utilities bills. And in addition to that, we also have been making referrals to folks looking for rental assistance programs, so we can definitely help folks out with that. We also have referred people to get, some food vouchers and gift cards to groceries. So we definitely do our best to help low-income folks out in whatever they may need. And in addition to those things, we understand that we are new to this space of environmental justice, to the space of economic justice, to the space of really examining our environments and seeing, what we can do to change, and really trying to connect and bridge people that are doing different areas of work here in Pomona, right? Because like I said, we're new to this space here with the Latino Roundtable through the Empower program. And so I'm really glad we're able to have Julieta Muñoz here today. And so Julieta Muñoz is an urban farmer based in Pomona, California. Her passion for urban farming germinated out of love for soil conservation and has become more ardent as she's learned about the injustices in our current food system. She chose to pursue urban farming in Pomona because of the strong sense of community in this city and the active core groups striving to make this happen. In 2017, she founded Growing Roots. Julieta has a bachelor's of science in plant science with a minor in soil science from Cal Poly Pomona. When she's not farming, she enjoys reading and drinking coffee on her porch. That sounds like a beautiful day to me right there. So
That
thank
was
you so
straight from the website too. Yeah.
much. It was great. It was the best one. Yeah. So everybody, please give a round of applause to Julieta Munoz. Drop your comments in the chat. Say hello. Do your clapping emojis. Make sure y'all show some love to our guest today, everybody. Awesome.
Well, thank you, Fabian, for the introduction. I love what Empower is doing in Pomona. Like, I think it's like really dope. Helping people out. Helping our people be green. That's really awesome. So yeah, you want to hit me with that first question?
Yeah, definitely. All right. So, you know, we you focus a lot on, you know, urban gardening and urban agriculture, and you know, that's, I see that that's your passion. You know, can you explain a little bit more about what exactly is urban agriculture for folks who are not too familiar with that?
Sure. So urban agriculture is growing food in your city in an urban environment. So most of our food is grown kind of out of sight for the most part. You know, you have the Central Valley, you got the Coachella Valley here in California. So urban agriculture is really about localizing the food system and growing food in an urban environment.
Mhm. Thank you. So, what made you want to become an urban farmer?
Okay, yeah, I like to tell this story because it really um, it really started out of high school, and my whole life I wanted to be a vet and do animal health science because my mom had told me like she was like, if you do what you wanted to do as a kid, as an adult, you're going to be happy. So I was like, so as a kid, I wanted to help animals. I wanted to be a vet. So I was always like, well, I'm going to be a vet. I'm not going to change that because I'm going to be happy. And so after high school, I applied to Cal Poly Pomona with the intention of being a vet. And they accepted me, and I was in high school and I didn't know how to turn in stuff. I didn't know how to turn in transcripts or whatever. I wasn't checking my email in high school. So they sent me a letter saying, hey, we dropped you because you didn't turn in these documents. So I was pretty bummed, but I ended up going to community college in Riverside for 3 years. And that was always with the focus of, oh, I'm going to do animal health science. I'm going to do animal health science. And there was a class that I think was like that pivot for me. It was ecosystems biology. And the first half of that semester was plants, and it like blew my mind. I was like, plants they have vascular systems, like what? And just how like their bark grows, and I just started getting like really into that. Like it just I knew plants were living, but it just the fact that they were organisms as complex as we are like really blew my mind. And the other half was like plant, or it was animals. It was red blood cells, meiosis, all that stuff. And it was cool, but I was kind of like, what, like low key, the plant stuff was more interesting. And so when I finished community college and it was time to transition again to Cal Poly, I applied and they denied me because my GPA was too low. And it was low because I took it easy in community college. Like I was going to kickbacks, I was like hanging out. I absorb material easily, and I'm intelligent, so I was just doing the bare minimum to pass the classes. So that hit me because I was like, well, what am I gonna do now? Like I've exhausted community college, yeah, what am I gonna do? So I wrote this whole speech for the dean or whoever I had to talk to, and I went with my mom, and I went in there with this speech I had memorized, why I needed to be accepted even though my GPA was low. And I had to I had to give this speech like the hierarchy at the College of Agriculture. Eventually I got to the top person, and he let me know, he's like, all right, we'll let you in the College of Ag, but we don't have room in the animal health science department. We have room in the plant science department. And, as long as you take like a few more extra courses, you can still apply to vet school. And I was like, let's do it. I already was kind of interested in plants because of that class. So I was like, let's go all in. And yeah, and like the first day as an undergrad, first class, it was a basic soils class, and we watched a video on soils. The teacher expressed his passion about soils, and I was like, forget animals, like I'm where I need to be. It's with the plants, it's taking care of soil. Like it took one day to break apart this idea I had in my mind for so many years about I'm going to be a vet. And I like telling that story. That was like definitely way before growing roots, but I like telling that story because it always reminds me that like the universe has a plan, you know, and it's like you're going to go through certain deviations, but it's for a greater purpose. And you may not be enjoying it at the time. You may not be having a blast. You may feel kind of lost, but you're getting somewhere. And that was just a beautiful lesson to learn. So yeah, so it was at Cal Poly where, you know, they teach you. So first they teach you about like just agriculture basics and botany, and they teach you about industrial agriculture because that's how our food is produced. And I was honestly fascinated. Like I loved the, you know, the big tractors and how to calculate fertility levels and how much fertilizer to dump on your field and like to the exact pounds, you know, through the soil science and just how much food could be produced. And like I loved the technology of it and the fact that you could calculate, you know, you could calculate like a certain amount of fertilizer or like water based on what's in your soil. And that was really fascinating to me. But then you learn that agriculture is also the most harmful industry in our planet, especially for climate change. And then it's like, oh, I love this, but it's so harmful. And so it's this mix of emotions. And then you take classes on sustainability and then they teach you about urban agriculture, and you know, and I was like, oh, that's it, like that's where it is right there. Like so many solutions to so many problems that plague our society, I believe and see them resolved with urban agriculture. And you know, that's where I really just found a passion for it. And you know, and I want to kind of bridge that productivity and that technology with sustainable growing locally. So kind of bridge both worlds. And I got involved. I had to do a project for undergrad. And so I got involved, it was a soil contaminant project. So I got involved with Center Street Community Garden, and I also did the project at Cervidaya Farms, but I ended up staying at Center Street because, you know, it was nearby. I felt like I could make more of an impact there and I could actually practice what I was being taught, you know? So that's how I came around Center Street, and that was around 2014. And at around the same time, I started working at Spadra Farm at Cal Poly. And I feel like I learned so much more from my experience working at Spadra Farm than like all my classes combined. Like yeah, the things I've learned in class, I use very little of it, you know, and it's a little frustrating because it's like you learn so much and you take so much effort to be a good student and learn this stuff, and it does come in handy, but like you really just learn by doing and putting yourself out there. And yeah, I don't even know where I was going with all that, but that's how I found a passion for urban ag. And And I do thank the plant science department at Cal Poly for that. Um, so yeah.
Cool, cool. Thank you. And so I know you talked a little bit about, different types of ag, and, you mentioned like in like the more industrial, side of agriculture, and, kind of being an interest in that. But why is urban agriculture significant to communities like Pomona?
Okay, that's a good question. So it's significant to communities like Pomona because of the access. So, not all of us have the money to shop at Sprouts and Whole Foods. So, like for me at the time, like I was spending like a fat check out Sprouts or Whole Foods. But, so it's kind of like who is or the healthiest, most nutritious food, the diversity in items, that's really available to people that can afford it. It's not necessarily accessible to low income people of color, the majority of people in Pomona. So, and I believe that, local, nutritious, and sustainably grown food is a right and not a privilege. That is something we should all have access to. And we need to make that more convenient than the liquor store down the block, than Jack in the Box. It needs to be more convenient and more accessible for our communities to access that. And, it's important because of the not only does it strengthen community, but it's healthy food, it's healing. And, you know, for a lot of folks, we work more than 40 hours a week, and we don't have necessarily time all the time to cook. We don't have the time or the resources to get to those healthy foods. And so it needs to be more accessible. It needs to be easy. Yeah, and it also, you're reducing food miles. So on average, I could be more or less on this figure, but like your average food mile is about like 1,500 miles. And that's from where your food is harvested to when it's on your table. And so in order to keep food fresh, quote unquote, for it to get to your house, it has to be picked either before it's ripe, or it has to be sprayed. And then you have the greenhouse emissions from the diesel truck, and then the processing plant, because they gotta bag stuff, they gotta market it a certain way. And so there's all these steps that add to pollution in our communities, greenhouse gases. And so we need to shorten that gap. We need to make that like a mile, you know? Yeah, so that's why I think it's important for our communities. And also it helps filter the air, helps filter water. So adds beauty.
It definitely does.
Yeah.
Definitely does. I think it's interesting how you mentioned that fresh food needs to be more accessible to our communities. And I remember a while back you and I spoke, and we were talking about this, and we are talking about how, like, with there are some studies that found that they're like immigrant it was a study that focused on like immigrant women or migrant women from Latin America, and how many of them who were when they lived in their home countries, they were healthier than when they came over here to the US, right? And a lot of it has to do with uh, you know f- uh, accessibility to fresh foods. You know, they might be a little bit closer to some of the farms. They might be growing some of their own food as well. And so it's just interesting to know how, like, you know, a lot of times folks come over here for a better life, but sometimes, you know, just being in the hustle and bustle of things, you know, sometimes fast food is the easiest thing to grab. Sometimes, you know, a lot of times, you know, our food isn't, fresh, you know. Yeah, I think that's interesting.
Yeah, and and I'll share that story with folks as well. Like, another part of the reason why I find value in urban agriculture is because my dad died of cancer in 2007. He had a pancreatic cancer. So the thing is, we're immigrants. We came here from Colombia in 2000. I was about 10 years old. And like my dad was always like a healthy man. Like, and the thing is like in Colombia, there's like produce everywhere. There's like fruit stands everywhere. Like in the corner, people selling you like snacks on the street, and it's like fruit, it's like mango con sal, and like it's extremely accessible and easy, to eat well there. And when we migrated here, it's not necessarily that the habits changed, but it was the food. There were like other stressors, of course, that I'm sure like contributed to his illness, but I saw him like gain a lot of weight, and it's not necessarily that he was doing anything differently, but like the food here sucks, so yeah, so that's part of the reason why, like, and I know this to be true with a lot of migrant communities from other Latinx countries, where it's like, health kind of declines. You're used to a certain climate, you're used to eating a certain way, having certain foods accessible to you, and then you get here and like the portion of processed foods you're consuming just goes up.
That's right. That's right. And I think, something that you had just mentioned right now that really stuck with me was there's a lot of fruit stands. You mentioned that in Colombia, right? And I observe the same thing when I go to Mexico. My family's from Michoacan, and definitely, like, that's something that you see people, buying cups of fruit, large cups of fruit, with the tajin
Right.
and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it, right? But another thing that comes to mind is that here, we criminalize street vendors, right?
Right.
But like, I see them bringing the community together. Like, I go by Martin Luther King Park here in Pomona, and there's a fruit stand person there all the time, and it's just beautiful to see that, even though a lot of times they get criminalized here.
Yeah, I want to see more of it. And I think a project we want to do as Growing Roots, once we have the capacity to, is just put a fruit stand out in the garden. I visited Hawaii about 6 years ago, and I loved seeing like people, at least where we were at, it was more rural, so people just have like a fruit stand out there. Like, take the food, take some breadfruit, take mangoes. There's a lot of mangoes there. And so it's like, why can't I do that here? Just paint something really colorful, really cool, and just put the extra food out there, and have people get it. So yeah, just let's make that happen. And I like the community fridge idea that's been coming up. I've been seeing that on Instagram, and I know it's going on in some parts of LA. I think there's some efforts to start that up over here in Pomona, and like, I love it, right? And and I hope it happens. I do know like the city came up with some like bullshit reason not to have community fridges, like it's not up to fucking code or something, and it's just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like anything relating to like feeding people at an affordable price is like somehow criminalized for some dumbass reason. Like, and it's just like, this isn't hurting anybody. Is the fridge gonna like blow up? Let you know? Oh, sorry, I went on a tangent, but just
No, that's
pisses me
totally
off.
fine.
Just
I love that. That's what, I mean, like, I understand, a lot of times helping people, is also criminalized, right? So I can understand that, the frustration and the anger. And, I like, I'll just say this right here, but I know how you mentioned, like, I don't know, something about not being up to code. There's a lot of things in Pomona
code.
that are
So many
allowed to not,
codes.
there's a lot of things in Pomona that are allowed to not be up to code.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But and I do want to acknowledge some of the comments that are in the chat right now.
Oh, sure.
Lena said that, that's true, Julieta, criminalizing basic needs is not fair. And I think Lena, when you said something about or Julieta, when you said something about when you mentioned the fridge, she said, yes, bring that here. And then let's see. And then there's also another question from Lena, and it says, she says, what is unique to Pomona as a farmer in this area? What climate do we have, and what could we grow locally?
Oh, cool. So what's great about Pomona and even Southern California in general is that it's mild. It's a very mild climate. It's really hot in the summer, and our winters are getting more and more mild, so you can have a longer growing season. And with like drip irrigation and things like that, like it's easy to conserve water. Yeah, so I would say the benefit to our climate is that it's hot. We get a lot of sunlight, and plants love sunlight. And you can grow pretty much like anything here. Like you might struggle a little bit more with like tropical plants, with like mangoes and like papaya, things like that, because they like it more humid. But for the most part, like, you got your everything people like to eat, we could grow. Excuse me. We can grow potatoes, onions, tomatoes, sweet potato, your leafy greens. We can grow spinach and cilantro in the winter. Yeah, we really can grow a variety of fruits. We can grow peaches, we can grow citrus, apples, like, yeah, no, so Southern California is great. Yeah, I think just California in general, and we are one of the top agricultural states for that reason. Historically, the soils in Pomona have been very fertile, hence the name Pomona, meaning goddess of fruit and fertility. And it's like, let's bring that back. Let's like live up to that name. Let's build up our soils. Let's have that bounty.
That's right. Sounds good. Thank you so much. And so I wanted to try to focus more in on some of the work that you do with growing your roots. So do you mind talking a little more about the work that you do with growing roots?
Sure. So right now we are operating on 2 urban gardens. First one being Center Street, and so partnered with them in 2017. So I guess I'll kind of bridge the stories here. Yeah, so I started there as a volunteer in 2014, and in 2017, the seed for growing roots was kind of sown, and I like to say it was sown there because I was like, I want to do this in all vacant lots. Like, this is what needs to happen. And so I went up to Pomona Hope, the director there, and I was like, well, let me partner as an organization as Growing Roots. It'll still just be Julieta, but you know, that way I can bring in more resources, be it volunteers or compost or whatever. And it was really easy. He was just like, yeah, like go for it. So we operate there in Center Street, and we are just starting building out our new garden, the Growing Roots Garden, and that's at Emerson Middle School. Super excited because that's the baby. Like, you know, like that's ours. I don't have to really, you know, we have autonomy there, right? Not that, I mean, Center Street has been great in that they don't really give me too much shit, but you know, there come situations where it's just like, where I have to like roll my eyes and be like, I just need my own space. And so last year, you know, we had this opportunity to grow at Emerson Middle School. And so that's the Growing Roots Garden that we're building out. And that's the baby, because if we make that place pop, you know, we can show that to the city, we can show that to other owners of vacant lots or whatever, and be like, look what we can do. Look what we did. Look how awesome this spot looks. And so that's why that location is really important. And so we have volunteer work days, Fridays at the Growing Roots Garden, Saturdays at Center Street Community Garden. And how that works is we grow in community. So what that means is we gather for two hours a day per week, and you know, we do anything from, you know, fertilizing our plants to pruning to spreading mulch, to pest control, planting, sowing seeds, whatever. And anything that there is to harvest, the volunteers get to take home. Anything extra from that is sold at farmers market once a month for really cheap. So that's how it works. At Center Street, you can rent private plots, but at the Growing Roots Garden, it's kind of too small for that. But once we acquire a larger location, I definitely want to do the private plot model. Initially, like I wanted to grow like everything in community. Like, no, we all come through, but you know, there's people that like their private plots, and I was like, you know what, fine, we'll do the private plots. Like that works too. So yeah, people seem to really like having their own space as well. So yeah, but for now, we kind of grow in community, and you know, like, and I really have to thank like the volunteers that have been just showing up so consistently and with such passion, really. And I'm really proud of like all the work they put in. And you know, because it gets to the point some days where I'm more so like kind of coordinating, but they're the ones that are planting, they're the ones that are weeding, fertilizing, you know. And it's just, and like seeing how they pick up on stuff after like a season, and like they already know what's next. It's like, you're doing it. Like that's all it takes to be a farmer. Like it's not that hard. And I wanted to instill that in people that come to the garden. It's like, you're doing it. This is it. You're literally doing it. You just have to show up and do it. And, you know, and like we harvested radishes last week and some broccoli, and I was telling a volunteer, like, you did that. Like, you realize you grew that, like, right? Like you were there for the whole process. You know, you've helped keep the plants healthy. You help plant them, or you took part in the process. And you know, that's really special. And then I love when people send me pictures of what they cooked with stuff that was grown at Growing Roots, and it's like, we did it. We were doing it. You know, it's slow, but we're progressing there, and that's what it takes. It's a slow process, but like, hey, that's a lettuce you didn't buy at Stater Brothers. That's improvement. That broccoli you did not get from Walmart. That's improvement. And that's what we did this year. And next year, you're going to add another crop to that list. The year after that, we're going to add 3 more crops to that list. But it takes time, And like, I'm not going to over here come and say, oh, I eat from the garden all the time. And, I eat organic all the time. No, like, even for myself, it's hard, bring some stuff from the garden, but like, I'll go get takeout, So it's also, you kind of have to do the work within yourself. It's not easy because of the system we're in, but we're getting there. We're getting there. It's slow, but we're getting there. And it really fills my heart to see people, using stuff from the garden.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think before I ask you the next question, I just remember like something that you mentioned in terms of like, saying like, oh, you don't, it's not that, you always just only eat stuff from the garden. Sometimes, you definitely have that balance. Sometimes, eat out and then maybe also include some of what you grew, whenever possible or whenever it makes sense. It just reminded me of of like I told you this last time, like at like some, we have that garden at Tony Serta Park, right? And like I'm a hamburger guy, right? I like hamburgers. And like I went with my hamburger one day to eat it right there. And like usually I like my yellow peppers because I like that spice, but I forgot to ask for them. And I was like, dang, what do I do? Like this hamburger is not gonna taste the same without that spiciness. And then I was like, oh yeah, we planted some chiles over there at the garden. And I just went over there and I grabbed a chile, bit it in my hamburger, best lunch of my life. So I love
Right.
it.
Right.
And so again, before I ask you this next question, I just want to acknowledge a comment on the chat from Jessica Gaitan. And it says, I think it's really ironic that Pomona is named after the Roman goddess of fruit, but public green spaces are so limited and our landscape is so industrialized now. Glad to see empty space be reclaimed for the community. Beautiful comment. Beautiful comment. And you're getting a lot of love in the comments, by the way, just putting it out there. But so this next question was more like, it was something that I was wondering because, before I met you and became more familiar with your work, I ran into the Instagram page called Growing Roots, and I noticed it was in Pomona. And that name, Growing Roots, just really stuck to me because like I'm always about, digging deep into your roots, whatever they may be, and then I found that, this was more about urban agriculture and everything. And the name really attracted me, just Growing Roots. I think it's a beautiful name, right? But why did you end up choosing that particular name for the organization?
I ended up choosing that. So when I was starting like drawing my logo and stuff, I think I drew the logo first before I came up with a name, and I took some like business course, which I paid too much money for. It was definitely like a very white privileged space where it was just like, oh, yeah, you can totally ditch your job and do what you love. And it's just like, okay, like, sure. But I did pick up some good things from there. And like, they had an exercise on the site where, yeah, it was like, come up with a name. And I just started writing stuff down. And since I had drawn a root, I was like, I wonder something with root, something radical. And then Growing Roots just kind of popped into my head, and I was like, wow, like I kind of played with different words, and I liked it. It has this double meaning of like growing roots, like, yeah, we're gonna grow turnips, carrots, and beets, but also like we gotta grow our own roots, and we gotta nurture our own roots. And I really love that. And and on this journey, I have had to slow down and reflect on my roots and why am I doing this? Where do I come from? You know, where is, what has been grown here? What is my like family story? It's like it's become so much more for me than just growing roots. Like this work just forces me to get in tune with my own roots and well, what do people grow in Colombia? What is eaten there? Where did this body originate from? What climate? What grows there? How can I cook it? How can I go back to those roots that have been damaged or pulled out? And so it's really yeah, it's been it's been a whole journey, and it continues to be, like what is it gonna mean for me 2 years from now? Like who knows, but I just know it keeps getting like deeper and deeper. um so yeah, that's where growing roots comes from. And the longer we're in Pomona doing this work, the deeper those roots get and the less I want to leave. Like a lot of people are like, well, why Pomona? It sucks there. And it's like, that's where I need to be. I gotta make it not suck, you know?
I appreciate that big time. It definitely takes a lot to do that work, right?
Mhm.
And so, and I think you touched on it like a little bit, but what do you hope to accomplish with urban ag here in Pomona?
So the big ambitious dream is to have Pomona grow 70% of its own food. I don't expect that to do it all through growing roots, but through collaborations in the city and the urban ag networks that are in the city. But that is like the dream, and I got a whole lifetime, so I'm not going anywhere. And I would like to see as many vacant lots being farmed as possible and having a well-paid farmer at each lot. Um, that's that's what I envision. I envision shutting down that fucking Jack in the Box on Holt and having people line up for salads or like whatever. But yeah, that's the vision. Yeah, and yeah, just I think just having that strength in community. And this week I was thinking about how the connections at the garden have really become a sort of safety net in a way where like people start to rely on each other. And that's really cool. Like for example, like the dog my partner got, we got the dog from a volunteer that became a friend at the garden, and he had pups, and then like the other day we ended up hanging out a little bit at Fatima's house, and it's like, oh, now these people are our friends, you know what I mean? Like it's not like it's it gets personal, and I like that aspect that it brings. Like you now you have people you can rely on in the city locally. You don't have to go too far. You can hang out here. You don't have to drive 45 miles to LA to see your friends. Like your friends are here too, and that's really cool. It takes time, but like I was just thinking about like how it's also this sort of safety net with the people you meet, the people you hang out with, or you cross paths in the garden. I think I went on a tangent again, but yeah.
That's good. That's
Food.
beautiful. That's
Yeah.
definitely people building community through what makes us human, which is food and really connecting with the dirt and everything. Thank you for sharing that. And so,
Yeah.
COVID has posed a lot of challenges in a lot of different areas. And I was just wondering, how would you say COVID affected the movement towards urban ag or your work with growing roots?
Hmm. I think it has shown us that we're in the right path, because when COVID started, we actually saw an increase in overall interest, an increase in volunteers, and yeah, so I think there has been a silver lining, because it's like we saw what happened with toilet paper, right? And that was mild. That's just something to like wipe our asses with. But like, what if we're out of freaking beans, you know? And now that we're out of them, it would just be kind of like a bottleneck effect. You won't have access to them, right? Like, what if we start running out of stuff like that? And I think I wasn't the only person that saw that. And people are kind of like, you know what? Maybe I need to grow some of my own food right here on the side, you know? So, and, there's, of course, like, we wear masks at the garden, and we have like sanitizer on deck. But, people have really shown an appreciation for like, oh, like, I wasn't outside all week. Like, this is like the only sun I'm getting, or, just, and I guess since other activities have been closed off, people are like, well, I know it's open, and, they've shown up. When we were first at the Growing Roots Garden, like weeding, that was in March last year. So that's when stuff was closing down. So we started there a very like tumultuous time, because I was like, should I even be open right now? Like what the hell? But I was like, I mean, this garden needs to get built. And I mean, I showed up, and then other people showed up, and it was awesome, and there was a lady that like got really pissed off at me, like over the phone. It was my mom's friend, or no, sorry, blah, 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 blah. It was my friend's mom. And she was like, what are you doing? What if someone dies over there? And like, it's going to be your fault. And just like, kind of the stuff that was in the back of my head, she just like vomited it out through the phone. She was like yelling and screaming at me. And I was just like, we're outside, but that was always, we just started that place at a very tumultuous time, but we're still there and we're growing, and, no one has gotten sick through the garden, thankfully. I think the sun does a lot of good, and touching the soil, and so yeah, so that was that. It was really tough starting there, but we just kept showing up, and we keep showing up, and little by little it gets done. So yeah, I would say that's the challenge, but also people are very thankful we're around, and yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And so, what have been some challenges you have faced with urban ag in the city of Pomona?
Sure. So there's a few challenges. One of the challenges is the access to land. Actually, a lot of the vacant lots you see in Pomona have already been sold off by the city. They just haven't been developed. So it's really challenging to get a hold of the landowner for that lot. And then when I did try to go through, okay, so then say, for example, I would have made contact with the landowner. Then we have to come to an agreement, and then we have to sign a paper that costs anywhere from $2,000 to $6,000 for some application for the city, so that they can be like, okay, sure, but here's all these restrictions. And so, you know, they have a bunch of just hoops and red tape you have to dance around. And the thing was, like, they were trying to put me in some type of box, like, you know, because there's not a pathway for urban ag in the city, right? That hasn't come up before. So they're trying to fit me in some type of path or box to follow their rules and their path. And, you know, and the lady, she was helping me. She was like doing her best, but it was just like, yeah, it was difficult, or it is difficult. So there's that challenge. The other challenge with urban ag, and I think community farming, that they didn't teach me in school, was the education on how you have to educate your community at the farm. Otherwise, it can become a pest. And I say that in the way, for example, that we were growing broccoli one year and someone came around and harvested all the broccoli when they were really little. So, you know, I was mad because now we're not gonna have these big broccoli heads, right? So it's like, so it's things like that where, like, I've learned that, like, education and patience with your community is really important for the health of your garden. So, like, having signage and just being very clear about when to harvest, when not to harvest stuff. Um, so I would say that is a challenge they don't teach you in school. They're like, oh yeah, urban ag, growing community, joy. But, you know, I've had my times where, you know, we'll have a member that will unknowingly, like, really cause some damage. And I used to get really mad, but I don't anymore, because how would they have known? You know, like, they're just trying to eat, or they're just trying to take something home, you know, or they think it's ready and it's not. So that has been a challenge. That, and yeah, I would say, like, patience and community education. But, you know, as we've been there more consistently, like, that doesn't happen as much. So yeah, I would say that's another challenge. Yeah, and of course, like, again, back to the city, like, all their codes and regulations that were set in place for some reason is really frustrating. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And so, what has been your favorite experience when it comes to urban agriculture and working with growing roots?
Sure. I love seeing people talk at the garden. I love seeing people make friends at the garden. I didn't think this was going to be the case. I do love some crisp broccoli or anything from there. Like, but yeah, I think, like, I love seeing people bond in the garden. I love seeing, like, friendships be made in the garden. I don't always take part in the conversations because I'm usually, during the workday, I'm kind of busy, like, delegating tasks and you know, like, yeah, just coordinating the different folks around. But, you know, like, I'll walk by and, like, I'll creep in on a conversation and I'm like, damn, like, yeah, you guys are talking about what you need to talk about, you know, like, you know, certain topics will come out, like, organically in regards to politics, environmental justice, race, equity, just, and, like, just people feeling comfortable expressing their radical thoughts. And, you know, and yeah, and, like, people make friends there. And, like, And I love when I see it, when I catch it, when I have two strangers and, over like a couple weeks, now they're kind of like planting together and then they're like having a conversation and I'm just like, yes, yes. And I love seeing it. I love watching men bond at the garden. I did tell you this. It's like I don't know, I love seeing male bonding, like genuine, because I'm like, see, look at you guys, like you guys can make friends too, and I love seeing it. I'm a creep, but I'm like, oh, look at them, they're like working together. And so yeah, I love seeing people bond at the garden and share ideas, and you know, they end up sharing resources, or I find out they like visit each other's house or like worked on a project together or whatever. And that brings me a lot of joy. That's my favorite.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And so I'm gonna go ahead and open it up for questions from our participants. So those of you that have questions, I know some of you have already asked some on the chat. I'll go ahead and ask those to Julieta. But if somebody would like to unmute themselves, feel free to raise your hands, and I'll go ahead and go down the list. So before I start asking those questions that are on the chat, we do have a lot more people we have a lot more people on our as participants. So I just wanted to remind you all just a little bit, about Empower, just very, our, a quick summary of what we do. We help, assess your household needs. We focus on working class communities of color, and we do our best to see if they're eligible for programs where they can save money, where they can get discounts actually on their utilities, or to see if they are eligible for grants to help them catch up on their bills. And also, we help out, see if they're eligible for monies towards electric vehicles, and so that way, you can get your gas guzzlers off the road. We also help folks, by referring them to rental assistance, and also if anybody needs, groceries and food, we can definitely help with those referrals as well. We recently, partnered up with Day One Pomona, and so they're going to be helping folks with their taxes for free coming up soon. So if anybody knows anybody that can benefit from that, you can definitely hit us up, and we'll connect you. We can refer you. The Empower program is also hiring, so I just want to mention that. And Demis did drop the chat. I mean, drop the information for the job that we're putting out there for you all on the chat. So feel free to click on that link and feel free to learn more. And so just going into some of the questions that people asked and some of the comments. So we have one from Talia Fernandez. And so Talia Fernandez says, I just want to clarify, Growing Roots is free for community members or just more affordable?
It's free. Just show up. Just show up, and if we have any food ready, anything for harvest ready, you're free to take home. Yeah, I make posts usually when I have like a bigger harvest. I'll make a post and like people will pick it up from my place, or at the garden. But yeah, there's no fee or anything. Just come. Yeah.
Cool. And so we have another question from Amy Trong. And so Amy Trong says, Julieta, what are your thoughts on community gardens making people pay to have access to a garden? I've seen it a lot of those in big city areas and even in Pomona.
I mean, you got to do what you got to do. People have different business models, and that's something to respect. If you're able to pay, and that's something you want to learn from, like I would. Yeah, I would say it's different business models, and those organizations at the end of the day, they got to pay their own bills too. So, I know we have workshops or fundraisers that we request money from. So yeah, I would just, if, I would say that the places that I've run into that do charge, sometimes they kind of want to cater to a more affluent community because they're the ones that can pay that much for it. Like farming is a valuable career, I guess, or practice. I don't think I'm using the right word there. So yeah, it's different business models. How we hope to get our funding is through fundraising, hopefully grants, because if our priority is making this food accessible to low income folks, there's no way we're going to be making money off our food. We can't compete with the prices at Stater Brothers, you know what I mean? So yeah, just it's a different format, but I invite you to check out their location, see how they're growing things, and if you resonate with it and you can afford it, I mean, go for it.
Thank you. And so Telia Fernandez says, thank you. Awesome. Thank you for your contribution to the community. And I don't see any other questions or any other hands raised at the moment. So I see a hand raised. So we have hand raised from Edis Avalos. Go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Hi guys. Well, first of all, I'm born and raised here in Pomona, and this is the first time I hear about this program, and I think it's amazing. Like it shows that even though Pomona is known and we have such a bad reputation, there are people here that want to see our city come up, and like Julieta said earlier, not have Pomona be like, take it back from what everyone thinks it is now. So thank you guys for that. And then also, how or what's been, do you think, the way that you've kind of spread the word about this program right now that you guys have? Has it been like more word of mouth, or is it like social media, or yeah?
So a lot of it is social media. It has always been something personal. Like the first workshops we had, like, I kid you not, like it was like my mom and my two best friends that showed up, and that's humbling because that lets you know, oh, it's going to be people you care about, and that group slowly grows. But last year, 2020, I think the social media, people started coming more from social media. And now I'm noticing a few folks that came through word of mouth, and that's what we want, because word of mouth ain't gonna shut down,
Right.
So, but it takes time. I would say right now, social media has been our main way. We're gonna start a newsletter soon, but yeah, it has been social media, but I'm more excited about the word of mouth. I want it to be kind of like in and out, like they don't really have commercials. People just talk about it.
Right.
So,
and then along those lines too, like, I know you kind of touched on what your um, vision of this is like for the future, but like if we say like smaller goals, I guess, like in shorter term goals, what would be next? Like, is it more volunteers, or is it more um like land or lots, or like what's a short-term goal?
the short-term goal is getting myself paid.
Yeah.
Straight up. So
Yeah.
I can do this full time. Because if we've come this far with me only being able to do this twice a week for 2 hours,
Yeah.
imagine if I could dedicate myself to this full time. So, the short-term goal is to at least get myself paid. And then the other one is to just focus on building out the Growing Roots garden. You know, we do those two and we're on our way.
Cool. Thank you. And thank you guys for all that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Iris.
Thank you so much. And so right now I'm just going to drop a link to the Growing Roots website just for those that are interested as well. And the website for Growing Roots is wearegrowingroots.org. And okay, so we just go ahead and wrap it up. So how can people find you and how can people get involved with Growing Roots?
Sure. Yeah, so people can contact me through the website. That's, if you message me through there, I'll be more likely to take you more seriously than if it's through a DM. But I'm also pretty responsive on Instagram. So usually, like, if someone will reach out to me on Instagram, I'll let them be like, oh, just shoot me an email. But yeah, the Instagram, it's @_growing roots. And my email, I'll drop it in the chat. So the email's jmunoz @wearegrowingroots.org. But yeah, Instagram's pretty solid. I do like interacting through there, but in regards to kind of more serious or lengthy answers, I prefer the email or through the website.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julieta. Well, that wraps up our interview for today. Thank you so much, Julieta. Everybody, please make sure you follow Growing Roots on their social media. They do have an Instagram. Please make sure you follow the Empower program as well. If you or anybody that you know may be able to benefit from the services and the referrals that we offer, please share that information. And we're always posting on our social media platforms. We have Instagram and we have Facebook, and so we're easy to find. And in addition to that, remember that we are hiring. So if you need a job, we have 2 positions that are opening up, and it has to do with environmental justice. So and helping folks, have access to solar panels. And so if you want to be a part of that work, please feel free to hit us up. Any last words, Julieta?
I was just reading the comments, and I just want to thank you all for tuning in, and I appreciate all of you guys being here. And there's different ways to get involved, and just we can all do it, and it doesn't have to be hard. You don't have to be a plant expert, and there's you have something to give. I'll say that. I guess I'll end it on that note.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Julieta. I really appreciate this opportunity to sit down with you in the virtual realm, and thank you to everybody who participated as well. We had a lot of participants, and it felt really great being with you all here today. And so, and if y'all want to unmute yourselves, you're able to unmute yourselves now, and feel free to say bye. Feel free to wave bye. Feel free to drop in the chat. Thank you all so much.